There we go. Now I'm live. Hey, folks. So, you may be able to hear the big storm in the background in real life that is taking place here in Virginia. Hopefully that's not drowning out my own voice, but probably not. So, tonight I thought I would talk about a little bit of post-game ritual. What do you do after a session? Taking notes and things like that. Now, there's a lot of advice. I feel like there's a lot of advice out there about what to do after a bad session. Or really a bad anything in life, am I right? You know, you go and you think about what did I do wrong and what happened, and I guess I sort of had one of those after the big fight with Devils in Turin. But there's not as much advice out there for what do you do after a good session, after an epic session, to try and cement those lessons and ensure that you increase the likelihood of that happening again. So you might be, if you haven't watched it, go back. I'm pretty sure it'll be worth it. Go back and watch the previous video, either on my Twitch. It's also on my YouTube. Blood on Cloud Summit Path. The Wildlands D&D campaign from 6/16/2019. Because I thought it was an incredibly awesome session. It was kind of one big battle, but really it was two halves of a battle split. And I'll talk more about that. But I mean, the craziest things happened. The spell Wish was cast. A player died. Now, it was a guest star player. And, he was only going to be joining us for a brief time. A couple more sessions, most likely. But still, somebody died, and I'm still saying it was a great session. And why is that? Well, I suppose it's possible the players might feel differently, but from reading the messages after the session and the messages today, I'm pretty sure that they thought it was extremely epic and memorable. And really, that's what we're doing this for. That's the kind of experience I'm looking to provide for myself and for the players. So, I don't think it was all that terrible that a player died, because he died in a satisfactorily memorable way. I think that and it was my brother's first real character too. So I think he'll be talking about how his first character died by basically wishing for more wishes for a long time to come. And generating those memories is and those legendary epic stories is really what D&D is all about. So, what happened? Basically, if I'm just going to sketch it out, and I'm not going to... that's one big spoiler. I guess I should have given a spoiler alert. Oops. But if I'm going to sketch out what happened... there was a... we started off the session with the players at this ravine. So it was almost roll initiative, not quite. I let them look around and kind of gave them a little bit of rope to hang themselves with first. Because that's the only way to learn sometimes. It's not always a good plan. You should never deliberately deceive your players in an unfair way. But if there's an obvious trap that you know they're going to be kicking themselves afterward for, I feel like that's all to the good. That's all to the good, really. So they were in the ravine. They knew something was up, but they were going to check out this shrine. Half the party went forward, and the rest were hanging back, and that's when I triggered the avalanche. That really set the tone for the encounter. It immediately put down Equitus, our resident halfling warlock. Tiefling warlock. Much more common combination, really. And got the PCs rather stuck inside of it. The druid managed to roll out. She still took some damage. It was a big hit. But I think well within the capabilities of these clever bandits, so which were 2 were-rats and 1 were-tiger. Now, that's actually not all that much against a 7-person party. Well, actually, 8-person. But then there were these tigers, which are only CR2, even despite the fact that they're large. And a few other preparations, but it was mostly about the preparations that the bandits had made, because they were all in position, ready to run out, fire off a ranged attack, run back into cover, and they pulled that off several times, as well as the avalanche. And it was my intent that I apply some more serious tactics that didn't feel unfair. And I think that pulled that off. The players had a chance to spot, to perceive the enemies, but it was very difficult because they've had all the time in the world, these bandits and tigers, these were creatures, to ensconce themselves in the snow and brush and trees. So I essentially gave them better than passive, a +5 boost on top of their passive stealth checks. And so none of the players were able to beat that, although they did come close. If they had seen something, if they had beat it, then, they would have seen an enemy, they would have been able to react. But you know what? Their tactics, their placement, they split the party, which is, of course, the old adage. Never do that. So half of them were way back here, half of them were caught in the avalanche. So things were looking grim as the tigers attacked, the were-rats attacked, and then I didn't have the were-tiger show up immediately. Where is he? Rashik the Wild. Which I was really happy with because it kind of made him... I had him whistle off screen, and this follows the principle of the pillars of a good encounter, right? You have these sort of signposts that there's going to something dramatic is going to happen. And then you have the fight, and then you have the resolution. We didn't really get to do the resolution all that much because the players didn't get their treasure afterward. But that's just because we ran out of time, and that's okay. Starting off this session with an encounter, starting off next session with treasure, I think will be pretty dramatic. So, the fight goes down. The beginning is going very heavily against the PCs. Things are dangerous. People are dropping. Not dead yet. But then, of course, Rashik the Wild shows up and starts firing off 2 longbow shots every turn. And I give him a magic longbow that we'll see if they remember to pick up. These players are not used to playing D&D for the most part, and the more experienced folks are a little less. They're not the leader of the party types. You know, they like to kind of just go along with the flow. So they have not been searching bodies for treasure. So they are low on treasure, but that's I think it's got to be a habit that they build up. And in a way I kind of approve, because rifling through dead bodies is kind of a weird thing. But I think they're gonna remember about the bow. I'll mention it probably on the ground, so they'll definitely check it out. And they're gonna search the tent. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So during the fight, things are getting so desperate that our Dragonborn, Krimfenstall, who doesn't want to take the risk herself, hands the deck of many things that they found with the note, property of Zendrig the Red, or Zendrig, Champion of the Red. Hands that to Samson Daharo, our guest star character, and says, here, you've got to save us, you've got to draw these cards, and then she takes off. And Samson then draws a card from the deck, and the one he draws, oh my goodness. Folks, it was the Moon card, which gave him 1d3 wishes. And I had him roll a d3, and he rolled a 3. So, all of a sudden, I mean, this is... I knew what I was doing when I put that... I didn't know the players were going to randomly roll it. I put it as a result of 100 on the Treasures with kind of... Treasures as Adventure Hooks table, which I've created for this campaign. And... I mean, so far, it's been a source of drama and fascination, so I think it's working out quite well. Also, the players have been drawing... They've drawn 2 of the best cards in the deck, which are the... is it the Sun and the Moon or the King and the Moon? I can't remember right now. Anyway, one that gives you, 50,000 experience, which I translated to 2 levels in our milestone system, and a magic item, and one, and then of course the Moon card, which is the most powerful possible frickin' thing you could have drawn. So it's like, oh my gosh, you could just wish us to Arkney, the city of Arkney, where we are, town of Arkney, where we are headed. Or you could, wish all the enemies dead. And I was like, yeah, you can mimic any spell of 8th level or lower. He's like, well, I don't know. I'm not that familiar with spells. I'm like, okay. Or you can do anything else you want. Anything else. But, it could come with consequences. Of course, he chooses to wish that whenever someone draws a card from the deck, I, Samson Daharo, will instantly know what card they've drawn, the effects of that card, and I can choose whether it happens or not. I was like, okay, let me think about that for a minute. And he's like, and then I draw 10 more cards. Well, you know, I'm going to change the name of this thing. Interpreting a wish spell. That is more appropriate to what this stream is about. So then I'm like, okay, you know, I'm thinking to myself, look, my principle is that there should be a difference between a wish that you cast yourself and a wish that's granted by an evil genie or something. An evil genie or demon or some such. Because the wish spell, the game really encourages you, and people really encourage you to, they really encourage you to screw the player over, and I'm like, it's a wish spell. It's a friggin' wish. You know, it should be able to do the thing. Like, you know, this is a rare event in the campaign, most likely. It should feel like truly as epic as it is. The most powerful spell in the game. So, you know, I described it as feeling like he was connected to every atom and every universe and every dimension. Every plane of existence. But generally, I don't like the idea of harshly misinterpreting a wish that a player casts themselves or gets from some neutral or good entity, as opposed to a wish granted by an evil entity, where of course it makes more sense to me to. It's like in that case, you know, it would almost be disappointing if the genie or devil or whatever didn't, you know, try to find some nasty interpretation of the wish. Okay. But my problem is he's got 2 more wishes still. And his first freaking wish was trying to break the game with the deck of cards. I have to say kudos to Leo for playing Samson Daharo to the hilt. This wizard suddenly granted unbelievable power. And he immediately wants more power. He immediately wants to abuse it and use it for these dark purposes. I think that he took this character and ran with it so amazingly well. But it would be a bad move to just take that wish spell and be like, all right, you know, I had a couple of different options. One, I could have said it just fails. I mean, that's an option in the spell, you know. I thought about that, like doing a wish that affects the deck of many things, that grants the wish. But that would be kind of lame. It would have been like, we probably would have accepted it. I'm like, okay. But, you know, it would have been like, like I didn't, you know, it just kind of a waste. Not a good, not great storytelling. Just okay. And if, you know, if I could pull behind the curtain here, I might have been tempted to do something like that, not that specifically, but something like that, if he hadn't been a guest star player who was only joining us for a few sessions. And somebody, you know, who was going to want their character to continue and not just go poof, you know, instantly gone. I might have been tempted to do something like that, but I'm really glad that I went with went with it the way I did. So I had already seeded the idea that this had been owned by this mysterious figure, Zendrig the Red. Zendrig, the champion of the Red. So I described to... I said, give me a minute to think. And I knew that I couldn't just let this go the way he had described it, because it would have just been bad storytelling. It wouldn't have been fun for anybody. So I said, okay. It was owned by this mysterious figure in the past, and I described to Leo, to the player of Samson Naharo, you travel back in time. You're pulled. You all see him vanish. He's pulled out of this time and back to the very first time a card was drawn from the deck. Now, I left myself a little leeway there, because it's only back in time as far as he knows. But this is a deck of many things. It could have been touched by a deity or some being of incredible power that could cast Wish. But beings such as those, if it ever comes up, beings such as those would have protections in place. You know, maybe they have their own wishes to counter other wishes. So there's no, there's certainly, I think, an easily acceptable justification for not going back to the beginning of time in the middle of this combat. Okay. So I described to him, you're in this temple of lava. There's a 7-foot-tall man dressed all in armor, in crimson armor. And he's holding this deck of cards, and he's drawing a card. And you have your hand up like you can slap it out of his hand. And he's looking at the card. You're looking over, you're kind of looking up at the card. You can see, and I was like, what card is it going to be? And it struck me in that moment. I hadn't actually planned out this whole history ahead of time, but it just clicked into place. This is what turned. I said, isn't there a card in the deck that changes alignments? Shh. This is what turned Zendrig, champion of the Red, from the mighty friend of Vale Proudheart and fellow good-aligned paladin, lawful good paladin, to the chaotic evil monster that he now is. And that was inspired because I described that card being pulled. Now, I didn't say this guy was a paladin or give any other indication. I just said, you have to decide. You know what the card is. I forget which one it's called in the deck of many things. But you know which card this is, and you know what it does. Are you going to slap it out of his hand or not? Balance. That's it. The scales or something. So he thought about it for a second, and I guess he chose not. I don't know why, and that's one thing I should do. Is I don't know. I should ask Leo why he didn't slap it out of the guy's hand. But he chose not to. I'm guessing, it's only a guess, that he just felt like he didn't know what the situation was. He didn't want to change something if he wasn't sure what was going on. And besides, in reality, his wish was only to abuse the deck anyway. So it really wasn't, it really wasn't his intent that he go back in time. But I said, you did say whenever. whenever someone draws a card. So, I mean, Wish can alter time. Wish can do anything. So there you have it. He decides not to slap the card. Zendrig, well, he doesn't know who it is. The 7-foot-tall man looks at the card. It turns to ash. He looks down at Samson. He whips out his sword and stabs you 6 times before you can react. And I rolled dice and I said, oh, he has a +10 to attack, so he definitely hits you. And I was like, I'm not even gonna roll damage. You're dead. And he was like, okay. And I barely gave him a second to react. I said, but the wish spell doesn't care, and it pulls you forward through time. And I described the next time a card was drawn, which was many years in the future, and he had actually witnessed it in really happening in real time. So I described him. He's in Toreen, and he's standing next to Bref, looking over Bref's shoulder, the barbarian who drew a card. It ended up being 2 cards from the deck of many things. And I was like, you can slap it out of his hand if you want. And he thought about that one a longer time. I was like, you're ghostly. You still have those 6 wounds in you. But you're material enough that your hand could slap the card out of his hand. And he chose not to do it again. And I said, all right. You're pulled forward through time. To this moment, you're standing over your own shoulder, looking down at yourself, holding the moon card. Do you slap it out of your own hand? And then he really had to think about it. And he was like, I was like, remember, you're a ghost. You have 6 injuries still in your torso. Holes, 6 holes through you. All of the rest of you can see this. He has 6 horrific injuries in his torso, and he's this ghostly figure that has appeared behind the real Samson. Well, he thought about it, and he said, I've seen the cleric, bring people back from the brink of death. Bring people back seemingly from the dead. I'm not going to stop it. I think he felt a little cocky there. I said, okay. Well, you have taken so much damage, you don't go unconscious. You die. And he goes, oh. And that was an epic death. I'm sure he was disappointed, but I said, do you have any last words? Which is something I picked up from Matt Mercer of Critical Role. I think that's amazing. It really worked in this instance. He looked around at the other players and he said, avenge the kingdom of Ebb. No regrets. And then he collapsed. That kind of blew my mind. Because Leo, the player, doesn't know anything about the Kingdom of Ebb, really. He created a character who was very focused on it, certainly, but that was just an amazing bit of role-playing. Avenge the Kingdom of Ebb. So that really got me thinking. So, I played some sad music. I went through all the things of a player dying. Everyone had like a second to react, and then we had to continue the combat. During the combat, there was this crazy thing that happened where Bella, the bard, kind of put a stop to everything by agreeing to throw down their weapons. But then she and everyone started throwing down their weapons, and she turned and, with the moment's respite, tried to cast silence on the tigers who had been listening to whistled commands from the were-tiger. Well, that didn't go so well because she was standing out in the open, and there's really It would have been very difficult for her to disguise the fact that she was casting a spell. So then she was shot. The silent spell still had an effect, though. I didn't want her to feel like she'd just, been screwed over. So I was like, the tigers are looking around confused. Like, they don't know what just happened. They're all sound cut out. Because, of course, then she lost the spell when she was attacked. Shot with 2 arrows as a result of their reaction to casting the spell. And then we went back into initiative. And the fight was scary and brutal. And they were down a player. Down a character. But eventually they started getting the enemies low enough, and nobody else quite died. Samson was very dead. But nobody else quite died. And they were dropping, getting, healing, getting back up. It was nail biter of a combat. But eventually the enemies got low enough that I was like, these are just bandits trying to make a buck. They're not here to sell their lives short. So they start running away. And they tried to stop the were-tiger, Rashik, but he got away too. And now they have a recurring villain. So that was last session. It was really awesome. I think it was really fun to watch too. At least that's what people in chat were saying. It was really good fun to play. I'm sad that a character died, but glad that they died in such an epic and memorable fashion. What a way to kick off your D&D career for Leo. Cheers to that. Alright, so post-session notes. And that was, I called it Blood on Cloud Summit Path. So one thing I did before last session is I realized, I don't actually know the name of these mountains because the players never asked. The players never asked. I never had a reason to come up with it, but it's a little weird that they're just kind of wandering around these nameless regions. And I thought it would be more interesting if they actually had names, so that I didn't have to go, and then, look it up, or, make one up on the spot, if the players actually asked. And I'll introduce it so that there's something to hang the memories on, like Blood on the Cloud Summit Path. Or they can say Cloud Summit Path, or, they'll know. Every time an NPC mentions Cloud Summit, once they know that that's what this region is called, they'll think of this legendary moment. So I'm kind of building on that as well. Epic death for a player character. Samson Deharo. Now, I'm sure this won't surprise anybody, but I'm going to text Leo every time a card is pulled from deck of many things, because his ghost will appear with its 6 terrible wounds. So that'll be a nice bit of fun. I'm sure it will surprise nobody, but I didn't want to just tell them straight out that I was going to do that. And we'll see how that works, because Who knows if Leo's going to be able to reply in a timely fashion when they're playing. I have no guarantees. Alright, so, treasure. Including the letter. So, one of the reasons I decided that there was going to be a bandit encounter, and I knew that they would somehow get this letter while they were en route to Arkney. Because I kind of want to give them an extra reason to go back and check on Toreen. Because I think that Toreen is kind of home to them. I think they've grown attached to the place. And I want to feed into that and reward it. So they'll cross over again. The letter, of course, is something I created on stream, or worked on stream previously. At least I showed it, I know. I wonder, did I upload that thing? Yeah, Letter from a Thief King. I'm very proud of this. Texture is from myfreetextures.com. Lots has been happening. Lots has been happening. The attack by the Forgotten. I can still change this. I'm just not sure that I want to push it to so soon, because that's only like it's only a little more than 2 weeks away in game. But maybe that's alright. Maybe that's okay. I could push it later in this month because there's another event at the end of the month that I don't think they're all that interested in attending. Whereas I'm pretty sure this is one that they're going to want to go to. So I could push it later in Fiexi. Just not entirely sure. Because I don't want to take away that opportunity for them to go after the other thing. Anyway, so after that session gave me such great ideas, I've just got to note down a few things that I don't want to forget, and I've got to make a change to my villain mind map. Or actually, I don't necessarily need to change it. Well, another thing I did is I moved the town information to other Google Docs. So I shortened this one up so it loads and scrolls faster. So now it's only 28 pages instead of whatever it was. Add another 30 probably. How is he not mentioned? Zendrig. Champion of the Red. So this guy is rapidly... It was just a name that popped up in a random name generator. I was just like, that's cool. Let's see, then when I needed him, I was making the villain mind map. He started to take shape. So I'm trying to get him added to... There he is. A once mighty... Well, he's still mighty. A once lawful good paladin of, I think, Awolf. I might pick something else. Let's go with Deremnon. God of nobility, I think. Lordship. Zendrig was changed when he drew a card from the deck of many things found in a lava temple. I haven't decided exactly where or what it is yet. Ancient power. I'm leaving that open so I have room. I have room to do what will be the most dramatic thing later. Alright, so now he is there. He keeps pulling out that scepter, that staff. Hoping it'll do something, but only interacts with undead, and there haven't been that many in a while. Alright. The other reason I want them to go back to Toreen is because I want Kront to... He's such a beloved NPC by the players. I just want to put him on stage again. And he's fun to roleplay, jutting out the real Michael Fitzywell, who drew those character cards on ArtStation. Thank you. So fantastic. Unbelievable. Would buy, make more, you know, keep him up there. Don't make me feel guilty for using your incredible stuff, but make more and sell them, dude. Wherever you are, whoever you are, you made some awesome NPC cards. Thank you. But yeah, jutting out, it has like advice for role-playing them. So jut out your lower jaw. And then also because he's, you know, from the Empire that was like, has a French theme, the Veillant Empire. I try to do like a orc French accent, which just makes him speak really uniquely. And then he just does, you know, regular innkeeper things, but it's just, the players are delighted by him, so. And, you know, he's the guy they rescued from being a statue. So it's good to, in a way, he's a little bit of the heart of the campaign. One thing I'm trying to decide on is whether to have Kront write them a letter, get them involved in the election for mayor in Toreen. But, like, I know that the players would be really excited about that, but the problem is I just don't have any good ideas for it. I'm not excited about it. So, ultimately, it's probably a good thing that I got them out of there. because that, without any good ideas, that it just wouldn't be fun. It's just not what this campaign is about. And that doesn't mean that we can't do little side adventures, but the thing is, a little side adventure, you got to have a good idea. You got to be something you're excited about for it. So I just don't have that. So I think the next time they go back to Toreen, the election will have happened, and I might give Toreen a break. That's what I'm currently thinking. Rather than making more problems that are sort of insoluble, or that, worse, the players will try to solve and then will, you know, just get derailed by, I'll just say, you know, things are shaping up well in Toreen, and they can go back there and they can get drunk at the tavern and be heroes, and maybe they'll, you know, maybe those an external threat, not, you know, rioting in the streets or the drunken, you know, alderman taking over. Even though that was an interesting storyline, maybe there'll still be a struggle, a power struggle. But I think I'm going to give Toreen a break, because it's becoming like such a beloved location. And that's something I've hated about a lot of adventure modules, is they'll start you someplace, get you attached to it. I'm looking at you, Sandpoint, in Pathfinder Adventures. You get attached to it, and then it's like, all right, now leave. Okay. And I think a little bit of that happened here, but first of all, the Wildlands is about exploring and traveling and fighting monsters and engage, you know, the characters making their own story, and the election storyline for Mayor and Toreen would have been a lot of me narrating stuff, and I didn't have a good I don't have a good idea. I'm not excited about it. So it's for the best. But I want them to be able to come back to a home, so that they feel at home in the campaign. See, I've learned that if the players feel like everything is terrible and there's nowhere they can go that feels like home, and there's nothing they can do about it, well, they feel that they have less of a purpose. And certainly anytime that the campaign story starts to slow down, you can just say that they get a letter saying there's an existential threat to Toreen, and they will head back there, and that'll get us back on track. So it's a really powerful, there's nothing as powerful as a sense of home, in or out of game. Alright. So I've added a bit for Zendrieg, because that great idea came up, and I'm really excited about that. See, that's why we do the villain mind map, is because the game functioned perfectly fine without me knowing how Zendrieg, Champion of the Red, turned from good to evil. But I knew that he knew Vale. And the players found this deck of many things through a random roll in Vale Proudheart's house. Here's my villain mind map. The game functioned perfectly fine because Zendrieg, Champion of the Red, I didn't need to know. Because I had the villain mind map, I didn't need to know every little detail about him. I didn't need to know what he looked like, or how he turned from good to evil, or any of these very dramatic and important story points. But the game functioned fine because he performed his function in this web of connections. The web has enough strength in the rest of it, and I didn't need to know every detail about Zendrake in order for him to fulfill his purpose of kind of connecting these things, of pinning this part of the web in place. But now that I do have that detail, and I do know a little bit more about him, I'm starting to get a sense of him, that's only going to grow and grow, and this whole thing is going to get deeper and deeper. Especially as we keep playing and the characters come up with ideas that they didn't know they came up with. So another thing that I'm thinking of that came up, not exactly during last session, but near it, is one of my players, Paul, was kind enough to write up a whole journal from the beginning of the campaign up to now, basically, from the perspective of his warlock character, Equitas. And it's awesome if you are interested in catching up on the events of the campaign from Equitas' perspective, including stuff that happened before we started streaming the game. Head to the Discord, and there's a whole channel that's just Equitas' journal, a whole text channel in there. But one of the things that came out of that is he misheard or misspelled more likely, something I mentioned during the game. You see, there was this devil in the dungeon below Rubble Point who referred to the Ebbian Acolytes. I said Ebbian Acolytes because they were acolytes of the kingdom of Ebb. But I love the idea that the kingdom of Ebb had these different factions, that some of which led to the overall downfall. I need to know who the kings or leaders were of the kingdom of Ebb. I'll think about that. Because they were probably the ones who had such a sweet relationship with Asmodeus, the devil ruler of hell. And who consorted with devils and extraplanar creatures in general, and became corrupted thereby, thus necessitating this destructive solution from the gods themselves, the cleansing rains. But of course the kingdom of Ebb, and that triggered the kingdom of Ebb to fight against the cleansing rains by enacting the Great Unmaking Ritual, using the Void Mushroom, the Void Cap Mushroom. I should put the Void Cap Mushroom on here. Let's shrink down our text size. So the Blight Tribe wants to capture the Void Cap Mushroom for themselves. They unwittingly serve the Forgotten. And of course, there's a very strong connection between the Voidcat Mushroom and the Great Unmaking. And the Death Place, the Voidcat Mushroom sprouts from the Death Place of the Obscure, I decided. This is starting to get very... Maybe I don't need to draw a line there. I think that's fine. I could have put the Forgotten up here in this corner. That's okay. So the Edian Acolytes, those are some lieutenant type characters potentially. If the Kingdom of Ebb was trying to essentially find Eden. So I just drew that line. I'm not quite sure why. But I want there to be a god who looks favorably. Perhaps there's somebody still calling themselves Edian Acolytes. I have no text on Phyrexian. Wow. How is that possible? I know nothing about this god. Except now, friend of the Edian Acolytes. Idealist? Doesn't really fit how I think of February necessarily. Still winter. Interesting. I don't know if he's an idealist. I have to think about who Phyrexian is. Maybe I'll randomly generate one of my gods. All the rest of them have filled some kind of need. But I might decide the quality of the Edian Acolytes and who they are based on who Phyrexian turns out to be. I'm going to leave myself some breathing room there. It's really coming together. The campaign is really getting good. Last session was possibly my favorite so far. It was dramatic, the players were upset, but like in a good way. They hated the villain. They wanted to capture him and hold him down and ask him questions. It really amped up a lot of the tension and drama, and I think one of the themes I'm going for is I want the Wildlands to really feel like a magic place where crazy things can happen with magic, with, you know, wildly changing politics and kingdoms coming and going, forged and falling. You know, just everything is in this state of interesting flux. And I wanted to show the newer players this is a game where you can die, because that's really going to get people invested. So it couldn't have worked out better. And we got to do all of that in one session. It was fantastic. If you have any interest in watching us play, maybe you don't, but if you do, don't miss Blood on Cloud Summit Path. It was great, and the whole sequence with the wish spells I'm really proud of. I think it was really fun. The combat was exciting. The dramatic reveals were dramatic and revealing. All right, so I've solidified a few of the things, but let's do what I was supposed to do. I was just writing down a few of the ideas before I forgot them. But the question is, what made it good? So my idea here is, if I write down what makes it good when we have a good session. I did this with a Halloween session a while back. If I write down what makes it good, then maybe that'll help me replicate it in the future. Replicate the circumstances. So what made it good? Okay, obviously the epic death, right? But high drama, epic death, but that came out of a thoroughly prepared encounter. That was I did a lot of prep for that encounter. Multiple weeks. And it really showed. It was very different from a random encounter, a normal random encounter. But that's partly because I was able to... I had the players roll it ahead of time, and then we stopped, and then I only had the barest idea of what the encounter was going to look like, and then I spent a week in preparation and really fleshed it out after it had been randomly rolled. So it got the benefit of both. Benefit of both preparation and fairness of randomness. Okay. So what made the fight fun? Fight was fun because mixed arms. I had ranged dudes with the preparation. I had the tigers as melee. There were hidden enemies. There were unhidden enemies. That was good. I could have thrown a spellcaster in there, but even a first level spellcaster that was like properly, tactics and strategized, then probably they would have all died. Even a first level one. Like one grease thrown into the right spot would have spelled death. Man, the thunder. I might get cut out here. Mixed arms. Big trap and terrain shift effect. That was the avalanche. Okay, avalanche. I'll take that route out. I don't want to associate too much with avalanches, lest I do that too many times. Mixed arms, big trap, and terrain shift effect. Now, that probably felt really bad at the beginning, but I telegraphed it, right? I used that pillar 1 of the encounter, the opening. I telegraphed the big drifts of snow looming over the players. I gave them perception rolls. They knew something was up. And so that's why I think it felt scary, but not unfair. Not bad. We kept the fun. Okay. Okay. Mixture of challenges. So what did we have? We had a skill. Perception. Or paraception. There were also these traps up here. Which came into play. Mixture of challenges. Skill perception. Taking damage. Dealing damage. RP. That came out in a big way. Even interrupting fight. I had to think on my feet there with how we were going in and out of initiative. I think it worked out pretty well. I think it worked out pretty fair. Chance of saving themselves ruined dramatically. So that was the curse that meant the tiefling couldn't throw down his arms. Wishes. Are there any other challenges? I guess just tactics. Maneuvering. Because the battlefield actually mattered. There's nothing that gets duller faster in D&D than two groups of enemies just standing still and slugging it out in an empty room. But this was dynamic. There was snow, there were trees, there was different varying heights. I'll just say interesting terrain in general. Alright, what else made it good? Backstory hooks. I hooked into the players' backstories. Dramatic. Felt very immediate and important and relevant, most of all, to the current action. Alright, so these are generalizations. Sometimes I like to drill down and talk about what each player found, like what they talked about, but I don't really want to do that on stream. Because, I think that's a little uncomfortable, me potentially analyzing people. So I'm going to stop there. I think that is plenty, and I might not even bother doing that because this is a stream game now. I'm trying to make these things fun for everybody, and I'm less playing into their I might still do it. Their specific preferences, but the problem is I don't know all of these players as well as I should like just yet, so I may hold off on that a little bit. But I think that this is a big one, the thoroughly prepared encounter. And I always think a mixture of challenges in a session is what makes it a good session. my best session would be, you know, there's a puzzle, there's a trap. Not necessarily the same thing. Could be. You know, there's an epic battle. There's some dramatic RP role-playing. And there's, like, exploration, like finding something new. And I'll say, intra-party conflict. Conflict due to character differences. It wasn't like a big conflict, but people were trying to take different approaches to things based on what their characters would do, and I think it generated some interesting and good internal conflict and felt very alive. There wasn't too much opportunity to do that, but it still happened. I think that helped. Alright, folks. I think that's enough post-game analysis. Possibly enough patting myself on the back. And all of my wonderful players on the back for the amazing session we had. So I'm going to sign off here. Hopefully I'll be able to be back tomorrow night for more campaign prep. I am really looking forward to upcoming games, including getting back into the swing of things with Rare Imports, my other game that I stream online, the Blades in the Dark game. I might try doing some prep for that. Because I want the next session, the next score, to be a kind of season finale. Maybe the finale of season 2 of Rare Imports. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully I'll be back then. If you come by, I'd love to see you. Comment on the videos, whatever. Thank you so much if you listened and watched to this. And have a good one. Bye-bye.